Hello and welcome to Titanic Legacy, a podcast that explores Titanic's lasting impact through conversations with creators, artists, authors, historians, filmmakers, musicians, entrepreneurs, family members, and more, who continue to keep the Ship of Dreams legacy not only alive, but thriving through their creative work and conversations. We like to keep the conversation going here on Titanic Legacy. I am your host, Paul Carganilla, and today I'm very excited to have a conversation with someone. Usually, well, I won't say usually, but often on this show, I'm having conversations with friends that I've known for a while, and we're just chatting about all things Titanic. But today I'm very excited because I'm meeting for the very first time an actress from the 97 James Cameron film. So many people will remember and recognize her as Leo's best girl, Cora, the adorable child that we see throughout the film. And she is being so kind to join us today on Titanic Legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the podcast, Alex Owens-Sarno.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. I'm so excited to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I just don't even know where to start. I remember, I'll tell you, when Titanic came out in theaters, I was a senior in high school. I was a junior in high school, and my brother worked at the local movie theater. And if the theater wasn't full, I could go into any movie I wanted to and watch the film. And I watched Titanic probably 10 times when it was in the theaters. And of course, every time it hits again, we make a trip back out. Just took the kids out to see it on the 25th anniversary re-release. And it's a film that I like to call Hollywood's last epic before green screen really took over. And being a part of that is so fascinating to me. It was at a time in high school when I was deciding what I wanted to do with my life, and I decided to try and become a filmmaker and go that route. And I think James Cameron was a huge inspiration for me. And so I'm excited to talk to you about your experience. First of all, before we go down that road, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah. Just been busy working, and it's 2025's been an interesting year for sure. So just moving through it, very excited to move into fall, and yeah, just been living.
Well, before we get into what it is that you're doing now these days, let's rewind to the time that I'm talking about. Back then, was Titanic your first film?
Yes, it was. I auditioned for it when I was 7, and the majority of when we filmed it, I was 8. So it was just around the time that I was turning 8. Yeah, it was my very first film, my very first audition. I actually had no idea what the process of filming or auditioning or any of it was, just kind of thrown into it. And it was an amazing experience and something that lasted with me forever and really set me on my passion for my life.
How long did you spend down there on set?
I mean, we would go sporadically. So I can never remember how long it was over the course of the months. But I was down there at least 6 separate times. So I'm in several scenes, and a lot of scenes that did end up getting cut as well. So it was definitely over the course of a couple months.
One of the things I love about it, and I used to talk about with my wife before I was actually able to meet a lot of the core extras, was how cool it is that James Cameron had the foresight and the creativity to create this cruise ship style experience with the extras. And I did a lot of extra work over the years trying to get my SAG card back in the day. But we would watch, the people in the background when we watched Titanic, and we'd be like, hey, she's from that scene and she's from this scene. And we've had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know several core extras throughout the years, and just having conversations with them on this podcast as well. But I just love how he took this community of people aboard the ship and kept bringing them back. And Cora's story is such a fun one because we meet her on shore before Titanic embarks, and then we see her throughout the film. And so being part of such an epic undertaking, I know it was your first film project, but did it feel as big as it was?
Yeah, I mean, the set was enormous. Everything about the set was enormous. The wardrobe department and the makeup department and everything, it just all felt very big and grand. And, I was just this little teeny tiny thing walking into these huge warehouses. And it's just kind of this experience that if you think about it for too long, it can feel a little overwhelming. But luckily, it's also you're moving and you're getting ready to get on set and that hurry up and wait thing. So it was just as big and grand as it feels. And I think that that really lends to the authenticity that you feel in those extra scenes, particularly seeing there were hundreds of us at a time. And being in the mix of that, or even being at the forefront of that, was such an incredible experience. And yeah, it was a huge undertaking. And I think it really translates into the film.
How old were you when you filmed?
I got cast when I was 7, so I turned 8 a little bit after we had started filming.
So I know it felt like a huge undertaking and everything was epic and larger than life. But for you as an actress in your experience, did it feel special or did it feel like, oh, this must be movie making or both?
It did feel special. I feel like ultimately the relationships that I developed and the way that I was treated on set by cast and crew, it kind of made me feel like I was this really special part of something really big. And, you know, Jim would be on the megaphone yelling at everybody, but telling me, like, he would apologize to me for cussing to everybody and would specifically call me out and be like, oh, you just do exactly what you did again, and we'll make sure everyone else is doing what they need to be doing. And I don't know, I felt kind of like a little starlet on it, to be honest.
That's amazing, as you should, because you were a huge part of the film. Your character had a name. You had lines of dialogue. Tell me about the experience working with Jim. When was the first time you met him? Was it during the audition process?
I did not. I met him my first day on set. So it was a scene that ended up getting cut right before Rose and Jack are walking on the deck and he shows her his drawings for the first time. There's a scene prior to that where she walks down to kind of go get him from third class, and him and I are sitting together and we're drawing. And that was actually the first time that I met him. And I had these curlers in my hair because my hair wasn't actually curly yet. They had to perm my hair to get like the iconic curls that I had, which now they just exist. It's very strange. Um, so I had these curlers in my hair and I had this little sweatshirt tied around my waist. And there's a picture of us in the Titanic book. And he's leaning down and he's having a conversation with me and he's just explaining to me what's going to happen. And yeah, just from it's very, okay, now it's time to work. Like, hi, I'm Jim. It's nice to meet you. Let's work. Let me tell you what we're going to be doing.
My children are both in the industry. My daughter is 11, but she started when she was 5. And my son is 7, and he's working on a big show right now. And people ask me all the time, do they enjoy it? And as a parent, it's such a like backhanded, almost slap in the face. Like, you think I would be making them do this? Was it fun for you? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. I definitely loved it. You know, it's so I had always wanted to be in the television, not necessarily on TV because I didn't understand what that was. But I remember being like 4 years old. Barney was my absolute favorite. And I would literally try to figure out how I could get into Barney. Like, how do I go and be a part of this world? So then being on set and doing all of these things and not understanding what's going on, but at the same time starting to pick up on what is happening was really, really cool. And Jim was really good at fostering play for me. He definitely wanted to make sure that I was having fun and that I felt really taken care of. And so even when it came down to doing really, really dramatic scenes, like my drowning scene that ended up getting cut, it was all playing in my imagination and allowing myself to really play pretend the way that I have, little kids love to play pretend. So really just allowing me to explore that space, and I loved it. It was so fun, and, I thought Leo was my best friend in the whole world, and Kate was so beautiful, and it just, being fed and having makeup done and all of these things, it was all around just a really cool experience. I was obsessed with it because it was what I think intrinsically I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life, and so being able to do it in this, like, highly professional way but still have it be so fun and not feel as high stakes as it is, gave me the opportunity to actually enjoy the experience versus feeling like, "Oh, no, and now I have to do this and this and this, and I'm freaking out." It was just all play.
That's what I tell people is like, imagine being the center of attention, getting your hair done, your makeup done, your costume. You get to wear costumes and play pretend all day. Like, what
Yeah.
wouldn't the kids love about that? You touched on it. I love that deleted scene you're talking about where Kate comes down to third class. The way the lighting is, it's just like so ethereal as she comes down the stairs. It's like almost like she's descending from heaven. But that being your first experience on set, was that the first time you met Leo and Kate as well?
Yep. Yeah,
And
I don't remember meeting Kate specifically that day. It was mostly Leo because I was sitting right with him and we're drawing, like, where the rain comes from and all of that stuff, and we just kind of formed this little bond right away, and yeah, it was just the first time, and I had no idea who he was, and my mom, we went home, and the next day she was like, "Do you know who you were filming with?" And I'm like, "No, it was Leo, my friend," and she showed me scenes from What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and she's like, "This is who you were filming with," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, people know who he is," and she's like, "Yeah, babe, you're the only one people don't know." Like, "Oh."
I was going to ask you about that aspect of it. So was it mainly your mom that would take you down?
Yeah. Yeah, so we had originally gone down for an open casting call for extras, which is how the audition ended up happening in the first place, and that time my uncle came with us, but yeah, it was my mom taking us down, and my little sister was also an extra in it. Um, yeah, just the 3 of us ready to take over.
It's such an interesting element of, the grown up understanding who you're working with and the kid just being like, he's my new friend. He's awesome. I had that experience with my daughter recently. Well, a few years ago. She's one of the new Spy Kids, and was Robert Rodriguez and Jim Cameron were like my inspirations for wanting to become a filmmaker. And so to spend, 3 months on set watching Robert work with my daughter was just like melt my own brain and go ahead and watch it melt away. But I would do the same thing. I would take her back and be like, "You have no idea. Like, do you have any idea what this is?" She's like, "No, it's fun. It's a lot of fun."
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And then for you to be on set on this huge soundstage. And I'm sorry to keep jumping around, but you mentioned the deleted scene where the water's rushing in. Was that scary at all for you, or did you feel safe?
Felt safe, for sure. Jim was right there and, Rocky was there, and it didn't I knew I was let me back up. Jim had already explained what was going to happen. He made sure to let me know. He's like, that water is going to come in and it's going to lift you up, but Rocky's right there and I'll be right here and all of that. So it wasn't a situation where I was like, oh no, I'm going to be in danger. It really, we had to tap into the acting part of it because he was like, okay, now that you know it's safe and you know everything's going to be fine, I need you to feel this though. And I need you to know how scary this is internally so that you can make it come out. It wasn't until years later that I kind of started having, I have anxiety when I watch actors having to do long underwater scenes.
Hmm.
And that's just kind of the one thing that came up out of it was just this really strange anxiety that it's like, I know they're fine, but just imagining holding my breath for that long after doing this very teeny tiny 15-second thing is actors are incredible. Let me just say that. You have to do crazy things, and I love it.
It's true. And was there any, I know we've spoken with Judy Preston-Incy several times on the show, and she describes just that third class party scene being so hot and stuffy. Were you at during the shooting of any of the scenes, were you like, oh my goodness, get me out of here? Or did they take care of you since you were a kid?
Yeah, I didn't feel like, oh, I need to get out of here. It just, I had like a little texture thing when I was a kid. So some of the costuming would be a little itchy or a little tight. But other than that, it really wasn't a big deal. I always had what I needed. I was more uncomfortable being hungry than anything else. And that didn't matter because I'd say I was hungry and Leo would order me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and we'd be good to go. So yeah, but I do remember it being hot and I do, the water was cold and all of that, but it wasn't anything that warranted. I think it just, you get really, when you're little like that, you get really wrapped up in what's going on and you're a lot better at being present and also in a lot of ways really good at getting the job done because you don't exist in a space of like, and I have to think about this homework assignment tomorrow, or I have to do this, la da. Look, I'm an 8-year-old kid. I'm just there playing. And so ultimately, the present moment is all that matters. And, I'm having fun with my friends, and everyone is like going out of their way to make me laugh or to, keep me entertained. And when you're in that space, you really don't have anything to complain about.
Amazing. What do you have any favorite memories from the shoot?
Favorite memories. I mean, I just forever and always the drowning scene that day was incredible that night. That was a night shoot. Yeah, I just remember like one really fun time was when Jack is like drawing me and he sees Rose for the first time and we're on the deck and then she's up above and you know, Tommy has that line like angels fly out of your arse or whatever. And so Rocky and I were just like standing on the edge and we're imagining all of like dolphins jumping and all of his stuff, just all of it was so tapping into like what kids love to do. And so there wasn't just one singular great thing that really stood out because it was all really fun for me. And I was really taken care of. And not a lot of kids are really taken care of all the time. And to be in that experience on such an enormous set with a huge budget to end up being one of the biggest films of all time to just sit there and be like, I felt taken care of as this like one little cog in this machine, I think in and of itself is just an amazing experience.
What was post like for you? Do you remember seeing it for the first time?
I do. We went to the casting crew screening and it was, I mean, obviously wasn't expecting. I knew what the Titanic was about. My mom had explained to us what happened the very first day that we walked on set for the open casting call, which is actually how the dominoes had gone into effect for me to even get cast in the first place. Um, but I wasn't expecting Leo to die, and I wasn't expecting, it was just so huge, and I left the theater just bawling, like, bawling because it was such an experience, and, you see yourself on screen and you're like, "Oh, that's weird," but really just I got so swept up in the storytelling and what it was, and watching my friend sink into the bottom of the ocean and all these things, and then there was a little party afterwards, and they had these, fish bowls with goldfish in them, and we got to take one home, and that was really cool, and yeah, but that was it. That was the only thing that I got to do post.
Actual goldfish, not the snacks.
No, actual goldfish.
That's magic. That's magical. Did you keep in touch with anybody from either the cast or crew after it wrapped?
Um, no, I didn't, and it's only been within the past couple of months that I have been, like I met Judy, and I just did Alexandra's podcast and whatnot, and I actually I was on set for my mom. My mom does her own photos, and Judy was on set for that. And it just came up and she's like, "Yeah, I was on set." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I was completely taken aback, and my mom hadn't said anything to me, and I'm like, "This is crazy." So yeah, that it was this year where I finally started actually talking to people that were on set again, and it's a long time.
Like, I find it hard to believe that like you haven't been hounded for interviews like all these years, or have you been?
Done a couple. I didn't Access Hollywood, I believe it was a couple years ago. But yeah, I mean, I'll occasionally have like BuzzFeed reach out to me or something like that when if I post something, it'll kind of like pop off. And so then people want to have conversations, but it's not anything super crazy. It's not all the time. I've done a couple podcasts here and there, but yeah, I kind of keep to myself, to be honest. I've spent a lot of time like honing my craft and also, doing the survival game in LA. So it can become really overwhelming and take over a lot of your time. So I'm sure that if I put myself out there a little bit more, it would happen more often. But I'm kind of like a even keel, under the radar kind of gal.
Immediately in the aftermath, where did you suddenly become the girl from Titanic? Like, did you go to public
Yes,
school?
I did. I went to
Yeah.
public school. Everyone knew what was happening in the first place. They all knew I was on set for Titanic. And so I would come back and they'd have like all the kids would have their little teen magazines with Leo on it. And I'm like, oh, that's my friend, and la di da di da. Or, I would be missing a couple of days of school and then I would come back and people would ask me like what was going on. I'd be like, I can't talk about it. It's secret. Like, that kind of energy. And then the movie came out and it was just everyone knew. I ran for ASB. Yeah, that's what it is. ASB president in 5th grade, and we had like posters of me holding the Titanic and stuff. And then, obviously it's such a phenomenon that I would be walking down the street and people would approach me, or we'd be in the mall and people were like, "Oh my God, are you Cora?" Like, and asking for autographs. It was a lot. And then I had gotten an agent after that and was auditioning a little bit and whatnot coming up to LA. So we were kind of doing that Hollywood thing. And then it just kind of became a little overwhelming for me because I'm not really a shy person, but having a lot of strangers approach you when you're 9 years old does kind of become a lot after a while. So we had to take a little bit of a break for that.
That's what I was going to ask. Was it all positive, or did it come with some dark rain clouds? I imagine it was a lot to process for you while you were growing up, but you mentioned it was something that you really wanted to do and you've been honing your craft ever since. What did your career look like after that moving forward?
Yeah, auditioning is hard. I'm sure your kids know all about that. And, it just, when you go into something like Titanic, booking something like Titanic, your very first audition ever, ever, zero training, nothing. And then moving into other auditions and, actually having scripts, actually having to like break it down and create characters and whatnot. We were just so ill-equipped. And it it really took a toll. It does. And my rejection sensitivity was really, really bad as a kid because I just wanted to be perfect. And because I had booked that thing, that really enormous thing right away, I should have been able to book all of the other things. And then you just start turning in, it becomes like, I'm not good at this. I'm not even good at it. Why am I trying? And, it got to a point where my mom was like, I think that we have to stop. I think that you need to just kind of have a normal life because this is really affecting you in a huge way. So I was doing plays and my mom would do extras coordinating. So I would be on set for that type of stuff, just doing extra work. And then, yeah, I mean, I moved to Huntington Beach when I was 17 and went to Long Beach State and finished out college, moved to Long Beach to like finish out there. And then when I was 23, I moved up to LA and it was my first time really like really living on my own as an adult. So having to do all of that, making sure rent is paid and bills and getting to work and all of that, it just everything kind of pushed back and back and back. But then I started going to acting class and felt really invigorated and, got a commercial agent and auditions and all of those things, but it's just kind of it's been a slow roll for me, for whatever reason, but I'm really happy with where I'm at now, particularly in my crafting. I've had some really, really great acting coaches and I feel really good about it. I have a writing degree, so now I'm writing and really focusing on writing and producing my own things. My friends come to me to write things for them, which is really, really exciting and fantastic. And of course, I get to be in it because I've written it. So yeah, just kind of going that route of like, you know what? We know what we're doing and we want to put out what we want to put out and not have anybody tell us that it's not good enough or that, they don't want to take a chance on it. We're going to take chances on ourselves. And, being adult creatives in this world, you really have to do it. And so that's the main focus right now.
It's such a cliche that it's about the journey, not necessarily the destination, but it's true. I think I see a lot of myself in your story. I actually lived right next to Long Beach State, right after we got married. I lived right behind the Ralphs there. But
I know exactly what you're talking about.
and those not the apartments immediately after, but further down the road. Pathways, I think it was called. But anyway, I digress. I kind of did the same thing. After out of college, got hired by the Walt Disney Company to perform in shows in the theme parks. And I did that for over a decade. But while I was doing that, I was teaching myself screenwriting. I was teaching myself production. And so eventually down the road, I instead of banging my head against the wall, waiting for someone to cast me, it was just like, okay, I'm making my own stuff. And so it started with short films. And then I got to kickstart a feature a few years back. And it's just like, you use everything that you learn along the way as that cliche lesson, but on the other end of it, you gain all the skills to just make everything yourself. Everybody's walking around now with a movie studio in your pocket. Like at some point, you can just start. You have the freedom to start making your own stuff, and that's really inspirational. So, congratulations! What is it that you're working on now?
Well, I just wrote a short film. It is actually a modern Western, and we are going to be putting it up. We're going to be filming in December. So we're going to be fundraising soon. And we've got our director. We're about to land our DP, and it's already cast. I just have one more pass of the script to do because my brain now is like, oh, I can add all of these things. I'm really excited about it. So we'll be doing that. I'm also writing another short film for a different friend of mine, which will be a comedy. So that'll be super fun. And yeah, just over here writing away as much as I can.
Well, if there's anything I can do to help out, let me know. I'm happy to offer any of my services in these independent filmmaking adventures of yours, and I encourage you to keep going. And it's an inspirational story, and it's just been such a pleasure to meet you and chat about your experience and learn about what you're doing now. Is there anything else you wanna mention before we say thank you and let you go on your way?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm just thank you so much for having me. And, I think one of the biggest things is that, like, I'm very thankful for the Titanic fans and how it's an honor to be a part of something that has affected so many and that people still really, really love. And yeah, I've seen some really amazing things this year. I saw a one woman show where she literally did the entire movie, like not the entire movie, not literally, but she did the movie as a one woman show. And that was really, she did all the voices and had all these like all of the characters and whatnot, which was incredible. And then I just got tagged by a friend in someone else. There's a woman who's literally like building her New York apartment to look like Titanic. And so it's just so funny because you don't, to me, it feels very like, it's a thing in my life. A really cool thing, but it's just my life. But then seeing all of these people who are still so affected by it and who have this deep, deep love for the Titanic, it's just an honor to be a part of it. So that's really what I have to say.
It's really why I started this show. There's a lot of podcasts out there already, but as a creator, I just saw so many people creating stuff, writing stuff, and all inspired by this ship that sunk on its maiden voyage. We say often on this show that Titanic was designed and built to bring people together. It was never able to do that in real life, but here it is, still connecting people 113 years later. Like, getting to meet you for the first time and hear about all the inspirational stories that are still out there, not just Titanic based, but people who hold Titanic in their heart and continue to do awesome things like you. So thank you so much for joining us and spending the time. And everybody at home, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, do all the things that'll help us grow our audience. I want to say thank you to Alex again, Alex Owens-Sarno.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was so lovely meeting you.
And if you want to keep up with her on Instagram, she's at Alex Owens-Sarno. And you can, of course, watch this video live not live, but afterward on YouTube, or find us on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you again so much. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening and tuning in, making us part of your life and part of your day. Until the next episode, seize the day, follow your heart's fire, and make each day count. Bye, everybody.